Hey, this is Raven at one of the base camps where I teach survival skills out of, and I want to talk to you today about the importance of water, good clean water, and just how important that is. Because a lot of people, they get out in a situation, they go on the trail and maybe see the little sign that says half-mile hike, and they think, well, I probably won't need a canteen of water. Well, I probably don't have to worry about it, you know. And then them little dots disappear on the trail, and all of a sudden they're lost, and they're getting thirsty, and they might even get brave enough to drink out of a mountain stream. And then, you know, even as clean as the water is up here in the North Carolina mountains, there's still that chance that first of all, that an animal, if they have pooped in the water, then that can build up bacteria called giardia, and that can give you diarrhea and vomiting, and that's going to severely dehydrate you, could even kill you. And also, if there's any chemicals in the water, I mean, you just never know. I mean, even boiling the water does not get chemicals out of the water. You need some way to filter the water. There's some really good modern things to put in your backpack that would save you a lot of trouble. For one thing, you know, a canteen is good, especially the Camelback type that you can just pull a tube around and drink out of, and it fits right under your backpack. And some backpacks even have those built in, which is pretty handy. I really like the Camelback, you know, stuff, but type canteens and stuff. But any kind of canteen you've got, you know, is good. But there's another one that I recommend too. There, if you can sell it in most stores, it's just a cup that you scoop the water up out of stream, and then you put the top on just like a travel cup, but it's got a straw in there that filters the water for you. So you can take that mountain water and just drink through that straw, and not without any fear, because it's actually filtering it for you. It's filtering it through a ceramic filter, it's filtering it through an iodine filter, and it's filtering it through an activated carbon filter, which is really good, because that's what you really need. You know, if you're going to filter water out, you've got to be able to do that. If you got some type of little pump device, you know, that purifies the water. There's a lot of different things. You can even get some of the cheaper varieties, even like at the Walmarts and things like that, where it's just a survival straw. Even those are better than nothing. You know, so think about putting those kind of things in your pack. Always plan ahead. Never go out without a pocket knife or some type of knife, and never go out, you know, without people knowing where you're going. You know, even if you're trying to get along, tell somebody, you know, so they'll know. And always take water with you. Always take some kind of food with you, something that won't melt, like a chocolatey candy bar or something, but some type of protein bar, something that you can trust, some fruit, something. And I also recommend, of course, taking a survival course, because that could save your life. But I'm going to talk about a situation that, what if you didn't have a filtration device? What if you did get caught in one of those situations where you didn't have water? You know, maybe your canteen got lost or something. Maybe you was in a canoe or a kayak and it turned over, and you've lost all your stuff. What are you going to do? You know, one way to filter water is a device like this. Is pretty simple, you know, and I always recommend people carrying a bandana, because I'm going to probably write an article one of these days on all the uses of a bandana. But just imagine you had 3 bandanas, and you could tie these poles together like this, and you have 4 poles, and you have 3 stages here. The first stage has got grass in it. The second stage has charcoal, just from a regular fire, black charcoal. And the third stage has sand in it. And then you put your container underneath there. You pour the water through, the grass will gather anything, you know, big, and then as it drips through, then it's going to drip down this next stage and go through this charcoal. You're probably familiar with, even in ERs, they put activated carbon in your stomach to get poisons out of your stomach sometime if they think you drank poison. You know, so that's a good use for that. That charcoal is what's going to do that. And there's a way of making real activated carbon too, but the charcoal from a fire will do the job. It'll absorb poisons, and as it goes through, it's going to go through the sand. The sand is also going to absorb some of those poisons, and sometimes it's a good idea to run it 2 or 3 times. And that water is going to be safer to drink if you do it like that. You know, and then another thing you can do too is boil, if you have a way to boil the water. And there are ways to boil water even in a survival situation that you know, maybe we could cover some other time. But if you have a metal tin cup or something like that, you can actually boil water in a paper cup, believe it or not, because the water conducts the heat faster than the paper cup does. But if you don't have a situation like this where you got 3 bandanas and all this stuff, if you can find a piece of bamboo, which bamboo is pretty common almost everywhere, you know, maybe you might even find a piece of PVC pipe, you know, that somebody has discarded. That can save your life. If you'll cut this bamboo off though at both ends here, so you have an open tube, you can fill this bamboo partly with about 1/3 of it with sand, and about 1/3 of it with charcoal, and about 1/3 of it with grass. You know, or you can just do sand and charcoal and sand if you want to, and then tie a bandana or some type of cloth over the end of it, pour your water through that tube, and let it drip into the container, and as it drips out, then you're going to have purified water that's coming out of there. And you can take, and that will get almost all the elements out of there. It's good to run it 2 or 3 times, but it will just drip out slowly, and your water will go. Another way to get water that's very, very, you know, you see in all survival books, you see solar stills, which you may or may not be familiar with those. There's a piece of plastic you put on a pit, and it supposedly condenses the water out of air. And drips into a cup. Those do not work well. Do not trust those. Plus, you probably ain't gonna have all that stuff to make one anyway. But there's other better sources of water too that is clean and fresh. For one thing, if you do go by a stream, rather than drinking out of the stream itself, if you would just take and dig a hole right beside the stream, that water that you dig up from there, you might have to get a bandana and soak it up, you know, and squeeze it into your mouth. And it might be a little bit dirty, but it's going to be a lot better a chance and a lot better for you than if you took it right out of the stream, believe it or not. Another way too is even the pine trees. If you take and strip off the outer bark and get to the inner bark and take a piece of that inner bark, like, and just strip it off like a noodle, you can chew that up. You know, you won't be able to swallow all those fibers, but you can chew the moisture out of it. But the best one that I found is grapevines. If you find a grapevine, if you take and cut the grapevine high and then cut it low, about a 4-foot piece like that, and let it drip in your mouth, you can get about half a pint of water out of about a 4-foot length of grapevine. And it's really works well. It'll heal over on one end, and then you cut off another 6 inches, it'll keep dripping. You know, and you got to cut it high first, and then cut it low, because the defense mechanism of the plant is to draw all that sap back up into the plant. So you're going to cut it off from doing that right by cutting it high. Then you cut it down low, and you can let that water just drip into your mouth. You know, so, and early in the morning you can gather dew from the grass. There's another way. Rainwater is generally safe to drink too. So, you know, but don't ever drink seawater. Don't ever drink blood. Don't ever drink urine. I know there's survival shows that people doing that. Don't do it. They survive in spite of that, as you know, rather than surviving because of it. Because your kidneys can really be overworked, and especially in a survival situation, everything is overtaxed, and you got to really be conscious of every little thing. But you will need water. In 4 days, you could die without water. 4 days. That's why it's more important to have water than food. You can survive longer without food, but you can't survive very long without water. So think about that, and think about how important it is. You know, and that's my tip for today.